I'm Dr. Catherine Cook. I'm a University of Manitoba alumna from the Max Rady College of Medicine, and I'm a Vice President Indigenous for the University of Manitoba. I'm really delighted to be here today to have an opportunity to have a discussion with Taylor Morriseau. Taylor is a medical researcher, she's a motivating leader, and she's a strong community advocate. She's also the recipient of a 2020 Distinguished Alumni Award for Outstanding Young Alumna category. Taylor, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
So Taylor, you're an alumna, but you're also a current U of M student. You're pursuing a PhD in pharmacology and therapeutics. What do you hope to achieve with your research, and how do you see it impacting Indigenous communities?
Yeah, thank you for the thoughtful question, Dr. Cook. I am a PhD candidate, and let me first say it's a privilege to continue my education surrounded by role models like you. My research does center on type 2 diabetes among First Nations youth, and we know from a report released just yesterday that rates of type 2 diabetes are 25 times higher for First Nations children when compared to all other children in Manitoba. And so the reasons for these disparities are really rooted in systemic issues, including the intergenerational and ongoing effects of colonialism and racism. Clinically, these factors may influence people differently based on things like sex and gender, underlying genetics, or dietary patterns, and these are the things that my research examines. I'm really excited right now to start a project using experimental diets, which are rich in protein and fat, which I designed based on traditional Indigenous foods, and whether or not these can prevent or delay type 2 diabetes within our experimental models. So in the future, this research may help to inform nutritional interventions for First Nations children living with type 2 diabetes, as well as supporting communities to access these traditional foods.
That sounds really exciting. So Taylor, if you're talking with Indigenous youth who are involved in STEM programs, what do you want to make sure that they know? And what lessons do you try to impact or to impart as a mentor?
For Indigenous youth pursuing STEM careers, it's important to first remember that Indigenous science and methodologies are valid, and they do not require confirmation by Western science. So the knowledge that you carry, inherited from thousands of years of living, learning, and innovating on this land, is absolutely critical to solving present-day challenges. Second, that as Indigenous scientists, we have access to the best available tools from both Western and Indigenous tool belts to really foster these transformative solutions within our communities. It's an incredibly exciting time to be Indigenous in STEM, as we will be the ones to transcend these disciplines and create connections that were never dreamt of before. So one of the lessons that I try to impart as a mentor is to be confident in our knowledge and unapologetic in our identity when it comes to STEM.
I love that. That's so exciting to hear you say all of that. Can you tell me, what advice would you give other current students or fellow young alumni who are making such a difference in their own communities?
Definitely, community can really be at the core of everything. For myself, it's important that community is reflected in my roles as a mentor, as a science educator, as an advocate for women in STEM, and so on. So in my position, it's not enough to kind of prove hypotheses in a lab isolated from the community outside, but I strongly believe in using this privilege to really enact positive changes in the spaces that I occupy. So to my fellow students and young alumni, our communities have really lifted us up and watched us grow into these new spaces. They have chosen to invest in us to do such important work, and it's this responsibility that we could spend our entire careers or our entire lifetimes living up to. And so my advice to my fellow alumni is to be mindful that we do not simply represent our communities, but every action that can be really an opportunity to make a difference and lift up the next generation.
So other than medicine and medical research, what motivates you, Taylor?
Yeah, I think with the ongoing struggles that this year has continued to bring, I'm really truly inspired by the youth who are rising to the challenges at hand. And so there's so many who are striving for equality, those who are pursuing their passions without hesitation, and those who are really standing up, possibly for the first time, for their convictions without fear. And so health and research are just two areas that I am the most passionate about, but the larger societal issues have really been opportunities for reflection, growth, and learning from others who may walk different paths than I. And so at this point, I believe that we need everyone. And it's really inspirational to be a part of this movement of something bigger and to reimagine a better future for all.
Thank you, Taylor. That was wonderful. Thank you again, Taylor, for joining me today. And I'd like to encourage everyone to read more about Taylor and the 2020 Distinguished Alumni Award recipients in the digital edition of UM Today, the magazine.